And here we are on the Island Club. I've got Mary Hedwig on the line here. And hello, Mary, are you there?
Hi there. Yep.
Good. Okay, we've got a voice test here. We'll turn the volume up a little bit, and then we're there. Now, here on the Island Club, we every Friday I sort of just find some people to bring into the studio or call up and talk to about their projects and their ideas as they relate to Great Bear Island. Now, Mary, I met you when actually on your way out when we were both on the ceiling heading off to Auckland, and I saw you lining up all sorts of shots with your camera, and I thought, here's somebody serious about photography. And we got talking, and you explained to me that you had actually spent a few weeks here on the island taking photos and for more serious intention. Can you talk a little bit about what you did here?
Sure. I mean, being on the island was kind of a bit of a gift opportunity. I mean, Vivian Keenan's house, we were offered that, as Anita and I were offered that, and Anita's at my place in Christchurch when the phone call came through, and Anita at the outset thought maybe she may not be able to take it because she was waiting to, she was lined up for a costume designer, a role in a theatre production related to the Rugby World Cup. So, but I said, well, I'll take it, and just like that. I mean, it was just a chance to get out of Christchurch, and a chance more particularly of finding out what on earth was on Great Barrier, like unraveling the mysteries, if you like, because there's a certain romance attached to the stories I've heard about the island. So even though it wasn't prime weather time, coming across gave us a whole kind of experience of storms and as well as warm weather and a pretty fertile experience. Yeah, I really spent 7 weeks photographing continually, and really I'd come out of the red zone in Christchurch, now enormous piles of rubble, etc., and then I found myself walking in sand on Mulberry Grove and Par Beach, and then later Midlands, and discovering these idyllic beaches. So it was immensely rewarding in terms of therapy. But it wasn't hard for a photographer to fall into material because it's just readily available, and so you just really have to put yourself out there from big storms that could be coming into Schooner Bay or Blind Bay, across to the more sheltered Pacific side of Midlands or Kaitoke. So I certainly was seduced by the beaches, and why not? Because they probably are some of the best I've ever seen. The white sand beaches that you can find some in Northland, I suppose, but it's just the nature of the headlands and the dunes and the sand and certainly the quality of the water. So as a photographer, you're constantly following up on things and then chasing the light within the actual shapes and forms that are there. I was just chasing things at different times of the day to gradually build up a portfolio that's now getting pretty rich. Certainly, I think it would need going back to in summertime to look at those kind of light conditions. But by and large, the island is a rich photographic paradise.
And with such a rich photographic paradise, what if you're collecting a portfolio? What will you end up doing with that?
Well, I've actually come away speaking with one publisher in Nelson, but they had the concept of a commercial book of the island kind of proposed to them some time ago, and had to reject it. That just really wasn't economically viable. So I know I certainly can do an artist book or a special limited edition portfolio. I think that would be good, like high quality printing, very nice paper, and just produce a few copies and are signed by the artist, etc. There might only be 50 an edition or something like that. I mean, there's that kind of approach. I think that will work. whether there's a niche in the market and another publisher who's closer and understands the barrier more than the one I approached, that could open. That could be a possibility, but it's a difficult one. Publishing like everything these days is under threat, and as an industry, just surviving is what they're trying to do at the moment.
I can imagine that with all digital reproduction and so forth. Now, you were with your partner Anita Peters here, who is involved also in other projects, and I think there was also an exhibition at a local gallery that came out of it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that side of things?
Sure. I mean, we were there for the opening of the community art gallery there, the new building, etc., and so we made some contacts with director Erica, and Anita showed her a couple of her figures, her little folk that she had developed, and that led to an opening. Just being and living on the island got us, or got Anita just a way into showing her characters, and I think there's about 11 or 12 of them arranged in the gallery for some time. So she was able to get some feedback from that. But Anita also had the goal of taking some of the characters she was working on and developing them, photographing them in Viv's garden and further afield as we toured around the island. The figure, should have a little carry case that she calls her bus. The bus of characters would come with us, and whatever environment could inspire a new page in a book, or a new line in a story. So, out of the island experience, she has been able to develop or consolidate quite a number of stories that'll eventually end up, hopefully, in educational readers for maybe 7 or 8 year olds.
Maybe for our listeners that haven't seen the figures yet, could you describe them to us and how they end up being photographed and presented in the book?
The heads are moulded out of a kind of a material like it's called sculpty clay. So they have quite an illustrative edge, sculpted edge, and a definite character to the face and to the hands and the feet. They are the hard elements because they're baked in an oven and then later on painted. Then the bodies have a wire armitage, and they're stuffed, and so all the limbs are connected by wire and can move. And then the costume or the identity of the character, the persona of the character takes over. So when she was on the island, she started to develop, using possum fur, 1 or 2 creatures that weren't human-like. They hovered between an animal and human, and they shared that kind of identity. So, one of them was a yellow, more of a fairy folk character, and that got environments at Wangapoa, reeds and grasses became ideal sort of background for that one.
And I mentioned that that kind of relates to the what you described earlier on as the mystical image of Great Bear Island and the stories that come from it, particularly for a wider national audience, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, there are lots of incredibly rich historical things like the middens at Whangapoa, and those beautiful volcanic rocks in South Midlands. There are little locations, little pockets of the island that, or to us anyway, you hadn't found anywhere in New Zealand before, and so they're quite unique. And you can certainly, the character, was transported by that particular environment. I mean, I want to return to the rocks in South Midlands because they're fantastic. The kind of they're obviously volcanic, but there are rocks within rocks, and utterly spellbinding.
And I think the spellbinding nature of the island here, that it inspires artists and people just finding their own lifestyle here works in many ways. Look, I
Yeah,
was
you
going
could
to take.
understand that. Yeah.
I just wanted to take a quick break now for a bit of music and then kind of come back and talk a little bit more about your work and photography, filmmaking, and I think you're involved in teaching as well.
Sure.
So let me just put a tune on and then we'll come back.